Well. What on earth is going on in Formula One? It's been chaotic this week, to say the least. You've probably seen quite a lot of me sort of popping up in various inboxes throughout the YouTube scene because there's been a lot going on. And I've just heard, literally right now, the embargo is over. Yuki Tsunoda has been confirmed as an RB driver for next season. So that is coming in hot. Yuki Tsunoda, at least one more year at RB. We can talk about that too, because I've already got a few things on the list of things to discuss, and that is now just on there as well. Hello, everybody in the chat. How are we doing? Antonio in there, Sally in there, Jamie in there, of course, the absolute stalwarts of the Not Applicable channel. Nisa's in there as well. Boopy Boop, Egyptian Aviation, GSC, how are you doing? Ryan in there as well. iChiller. 10. Oh, you were counting down. I see what you mean. Magic with a Q. Hello, mate. How are we doing? Vincent in there as well. How are we all feeling? Shall we talk? Which Red Bull driver would you like to discuss first? We can discuss Yuki Tsunoda, who has now just been confirmed at RB. We can discuss Sergio Perez, who has been confirmed at Red Bull. Or we can go for the 2026 regulation drop, a video that I worked on ridiculously hard. Just got it out there. I was like, right, the 2026 regulations are dropping today. I've got a couple of hours after that. I'm going to do the video straight away afterwards. Bang, got it out there. Absolute flop. So if you haven't seen my video on the 2026 regulations, it is linked down in the description below. And also, just have it on in the background because it's been an absolute travesty of a video. Absolute shocker of a video. So if you can just, do us a favor, open that up in the background, just play that through. It's only like 6.5 minutes. Explains all of the 2026 regulations, but we'll have about a little bit of a chat about them as well. What will happen with Daniel Ricciardo is the question that is kind of being asked right now of Christian Horner, and he's left the door open. Obviously, Liam Lawson had an exceptional time in Formula One last year, stepped in for 5 races for Daniel Ricciardo and was sublime, I think it has to be said. Liam Lawson really did catch the eye of the Formula One world and kind of took himself from, okay, yeah, he's RB and Red Bull's reserve driver, to, oh, okay, Liam Lawson could really do something in Formula One. And I think before those 5 races that he had last year, just after the summer break, no one was really talking about Liam Lawson being an absolute guarantee of the Formula One grid. After those 5 races and coming into this season, considering the start of the season Daniel Ricciardo has had, Miami sprint outside, like Daniel Ricciardo was absolutely phenomenal for the Miami sprint. Outside of that, it's been a pretty poor start to the season for the Australian, and it does feel like Liam Lawson is kind of still there. He's still at every single race with Red Bull pretty much. He's still in the garage quite a lot of the time behind Daniel Ricciardo, and it does feel like Liam Lawson should be in the mix. Obviously, Isaac Hadjar is also putting in some work. He's got some free practice sessions coming up this year because Liam Lawson's no longer eligible for those free practice sessions. So it's a real weird mix that is going down at Red Bull. And it looks like at the moment, they're just going to stick with the drivers that they've got. Like sticking with Max Verstappen, obviously. He's contracted until 2028. He's their Formula One world champion. He's sticking with Sergio Perez. 50-50 on that, in my personal opinion. I can completely understand the reasoning behind it. I think, better the devil with Sergio Perez, but I really need to see something from Sergio Perez during this Canadian Grand Prix, because it was at this point last year, particularly Monaco last year, that was absolutely dreadful from Sergio Perez. And then it was kind of like a 10 to 12 race spiral after Monaco, where Sergio Perez was not... I think the thing is, it's been played a little bit. Like, considering how dominant that Red Bull car was, he should have just been getting podiums every single weekend. Like, when you see Max Verstappen win a record amount of races in a row, pick up a record amount of points. I know that Sergio Perez still finished in the top 3 in the championship, but that wasn't really good enough. Let's be real about it. That wasn't really good enough. And then obviously when you've got the likes of Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc looking a bit more competitive, I don't want to see Sergio Perez go on one of those same spirals again, even though he has now got himself a seat and guaranteed himself a spot on the Formula One grid with Red Bull for the next couple of seasons, actually moving into 2026 as well. So that could be really interesting from Red Bull's side of things. As I just said, they have now confirmed that Yuki Tsunoda is going to be staying on the grid. I think they had to get that done. Apparently, there was something in Yuki Tsunoda's contract where they could extend for a year anyway, as long as Yuki wanted to. And I think looking at the options that Yuki has got, Yuki could have gone maybe to Alpine, be alongside Gasly again. Could have maybe gone to Williams. I could see that route for Yuki Tsunoda in one way or another, being alongside Alex Albon, again, a driver that he's worked with really well during their time at Red Bull together. Alex Albon was one of the figures behind the scenes, really helping Yuki Tsunoda in his first couple of seasons in Formula One and as he was transitioning into becoming a Formula One driver. So I think that combination would have worked. But at the moment, RB looked like the 6th fastest car. Yuki Tsunoda looks like the fastest driver in the back of the pack. And I think Red Bull did the right thing there in confirming Yuki Tsunoda, getting him locked down onto a contract, and at least confirming his, stance within the Red Bull system for another year. Is he ever really going to be able to get up into the full Red Bull team? I don't think so. But also, I don't know where Yuki Tsunoda would go from here at this moment in time, where he could maybe be that number 1 driver, like Red Bull or RB, sorry. Next year, he would be the number 1 driver because I imagine Liam Lawson is going to come in beside him. And I think somebody, where was it? Jacques Villeneuve. Yeah, Michael just said in the chat, Jacques Villeneuve has not been the nicest about Daniel Ricciardo. And I think Daniel Ricciardo is in a position where Villeneuve made a good point. How many years now have we said Daniel Ricciardo just needs a better car, or the car doesn't quite suit him and he's not quite getting into the rhythm of this car yet? And, he got quite a few excuses at McLaren because he managed to pick up that victory in Monza. He got quite a few excuses at McLaren because the McLaren is inherently a very difficult car to drive. Like, of the 10 cars on the grid, the McLaren is one of the most difficult to actually understand as a driver because it is very unpredictable and it does things that you don't expect it to do. But we gave him a lot of leeway, and now even coming into RB, he is being completely trounced by Yuki Tsunoda at this point. And I don't know where I stand with Daniel Ricciardo. I think it's going to be a real wait and see for Daniel Ricciardo. I do think he's got the rest of the season. Don't get me wrong, I don't think RB are going to do what they did last year with Nick de Vries and sack him 10 races in. But I do think it is very much okay, Daniel, you've got 16 races left this season. They're 16 races when we need to see something. So far, he's had 8 races, and one of them has been good. Well, one sprint race has been good out of 8 races. If, again, he has like the next 16 Grand Prix, and there's only 2 out of those 16 where he has like an actual good weekend. Is that enough? I don't think so. 3 Grand Prix over the course of a 24 Grand Prix season, 1 in 8 races being good. It's just not enough to really prove that you warrant being on the Formula One grid in terms of performance. Then you've got to look at the side of Daniel Ricciardo with RB being a team that kind of restructured itself, obviously changed its name, brought in Visa, brought in Cash App, and they would have wanted Daniel Ricciardo there to be the face of that because Daniel Ricciardo, I think, still is like in the top 5. I want to say like Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton. Maybe he's in the top 4 in terms of fan base. I'm trying to remember. There was like a Formula One ranking, like how much money each fan base generates for Formula One drivers. And Daniel Ricciardo was right up there in terms of like the media that he does, in terms of the amount of money that he makes from like merchandise sales and various bits and pieces, which I know isn't a massive chunk of the pie. But when Red Bull are dealing with some fairly controversial things otherwise throughout their team, it's good to have a driver that is really well liked on the Formula One grid and has a massive fan base to kind of point towards for a lot of that time. You know, you're like, oh, Christian Horner, what's going on with you at this moment in time? You're like, well, Daniel Ricciardo, look at him. He's driving a soapbox. Just kind of point towards that. And then, of course, we can kind of lead on to Williams. I thought Yuki Tsunoda would have been a good choice for Williams, to be honest with you. I thought if they could nab Yuki Tsunoda, that would be quite a handy little driver they'd have on their hands. But Yuki Tsunoda's going to stay. That then leads on to Williams, who have been talking about Carlos Sainz. James Vowles, I thought, was quite uncharacteristically quite bold about talking about Williams' situation in the driver market, talking about the fact that they have been in contact with various drivers and they have been in contact with particularly Carlos Sainz. As Sally mentions in the chat, what on earth happens to Carlos Sainz now? The doors are closing very quickly. Obviously, Sergio Perez now locked in at Red Bull, looking more and more likely that Kimi Antonelli is going to get that Mercedes seat, by the way, because they just keep announcing Mercedes testing sessions for Kimi Antonelli. There's been rumors that Kimi Antonelli outperformed Mick Schumacher in a recent test that they did. No real numbers have come from that, but I've heard, a few journalists and a few various people kind of hinting towards that might be the case. Obviously, who knows? Take that with a very big pinch of salt. But if he did manage to outperform Mick Schumacher in a test, then Kimi Antonelli's looking very, very good for that Mercedes seat. McLaren are locked in, Aston Martin are locked in, Ferrari are locked in. You're then looking at, you go further and further down, you're looking at RB. Does Carlos Sainz go to the second Red Bull team? I don't think so. Like, if RB were a team in and of themselves and they weren't just a Red Bull junior team, maybe he goes there. Haas to replace Nico Hulkenberg. Obviously, Ollie Behrman is probably going to go in there. So then you're looking at replacing Kevin Magnussen with Carlos Sainz. For Haas, that would be absolutely amazing. I don't think they can afford a Carlos Sainz, if I'm honest with you. Carlos Sainz would have to take a substantial pay drop in terms of where he's at right now to go to Haas. Like, Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen are quite low paid in comparison. Kevin Magnussen earns, I think it's like 5 million a year. Nico Hulkenberg, I think it's about 2 million a year, just like base salary from the team. So that would be a big drop from Carlos Sainz if he were to end up at Haas. And then you look at Williams, Alpine with Esteban Ocon saying that he's now going. And then the obvious, Stake Sauber to become Audi. They'd offer the most money for Carlos Sainz, whether Carlos Sainz wants to take that money and go there. And it's just, again, it's such a big drop. Stake looking like Sauber this season, it's between Alpine and Sauber as to who's the worst car on the grid, right? It was Alpine for the first few races. Alpine seem to have taken a couple of steps in the right direction. In the last couple of races, it has been Stake Sauber that have been the worst on race pace out of everybody. Carlos Sainz in a very, very awkward situation, Sally, to be honest with you. Carlos to Williams, that's what I mean. I feel like Williams is becoming the most, but Williams and Sauber, I would say, are becoming the two options that are realistic to me. Red Bull couldn't afford Carlos Sainz. I think that is, I think that does play into it. I think Carlos Sainz doesn't want to take a huge wage drop. And I think that's fair, right? He's been very, very quick. He's very, very good. He's a very talented Formula One driver. You want to be paid at a level of your talent, right? And that's why, he's been on the grid for a very long time. He's worked for a lot of teams. If you actually look at Carlos Sainz's career, like when he was at Renault, I thought he was very, very good. I thought he made the Renault team better. When he was at McLaren, the McLaren team got better. When he's been at Ferrari, the Ferrari team have got better. Like, whether that is Carlos Sainz related or whether he's just been in the right places at the right time is difficult to tell. But it does feel like everywhere he goes, the team does improve in one way or another. I know Renault then just fell apart again, but McLaren have kept improving. Ferrari have kept improving. He's still there at the moment in time. If he goes to Williams, he can be that catalyst, and I think he can continue to help the Williams team develop further. It's just whether he wants to, as I say, go to stake, take the money, gamble on the Audi project. Even if he does gamble on the Audi project, I still think once Audi come in 2026, it's going to be like almost the next regulation cycle in 2030, where Audi are properly competitive and like may be able to battle for wins. I don't think you come in as a brand new manufacturer of engines. Obviously, Sauber still covering a lot of the aerodynamic side of things. I don't think Audi are going to be able to come in 2026 and straight away be right up there with the best of the teams. But I might be proved wrong by that. Audi might be able to just come in and absolutely smash it straight off the bat. I mean, Mercedes weren't able to do that. You got to remember, Mercedes had a few years with Schumacher and Rosberg and then built up for a few seasons. Then the regulation change came in, and then Mercedes became the dominant force that we now know them as. So crazy how Haas and the worst aren't being used in the same sentence anymore. Yeah, Haas have been amazing. Like Nico Hülkenberg is taking, if anything, a step backwards, right? The Haas car has looked way better than the state car, but I think he's taking that gamble as well. And I think Hülkenberg is in a very different situation to Carlos Sainz, right? Carlos Sainz can't really afford to gamble away the best years of his career at a team that might not be able to deliver him a fast car for 5 seasons. Whereas Nico Hülkenberg's coming towards the end, can take a big pay increase, can kind of take that money, do something with it, be involved in the Audi project, like forever be one of those first Audi drivers. Like whenever Formula One, like whenever we look back at Audi in Formula One, we'll talk about Nico Hülkenberg and how Nico Hülkenberg was there for like the first season of it, and how he was like the first Audi driver, if you will. Like he's the first confirmed Audi driver. So Nico Hülkenberg's kind of put himself in the history books there as well by moving over in the end of his career. Doesn't really have anything to gamble with. The other one is like Lance Stroll, isn't it? Let's talk Canada. We are at the Canadian Grand Prix. Let's talk Formula One's resident Canadian driver and the man who is always a mystery to all of us, Lance Stroll. It's just whether or not Lance Stroll is going to hang up his boots. Obviously, it's not looking likely at any point this season, and it's looking more and more like Lance Stroll will just eventually be confirmed as an Aston Martin driver for next season. I haven't seen any like full confirmation from Aston Martin, but obviously Lance Stroll is in a weird position where he has a rolling contract with the team anyway, so he doesn't really need to be too worried about it one way or another. And as long as he wants to stay there, he will. Like it's completely up to the driver as opposed to being up to the team, which again is very strange in terms of Formula One. Like the team should be the thing that is dictating who stays and who goes, but Lance Stroll, Lawrence Stroll, obviously having a big part to play in all of that. That Aston Martin seat, it makes you wonder whether Aston Martin are in conversation with the likes of Carlos Sainz, the likes of Yuki Tsunoda. I know Yuki Tsunoda's just been taken off the market, but you'd think that Aston Martin would at least have those discussions with the drivers and maybe even get an idea of like their salary, get an idea of what they're aiming for, and just have a chat with them to kind of see what's going to go and how things are going to end up being in a couple of seasons' time. If they do have to replace a Lance Stroll, or even if they had to replace Fernando Alonso, obviously Alonso wanting to stay until the new regulations come in, but Fernando Alonso will eventually run out of years. I know it doesn't feel like he'll ever run out of years, but he will eventually run out of years. Quali starts at 9 p.m. It does indeed. We've got 10 minutes time running up to qualifying here in Canada. Be interesting to see how this plays out, because obviously minimal running in free practice 1 and free practice 2. The weather has been very Canadian. It's been great if you're a duck. Like it has been very wet. The track has been sort of washed out a couple of times over the course of Friday and Saturday already. It's not looking like it's raining at this moment in time. Just trying to look behind Karun Chandok here on the Sky Sports coverage. It doesn't look like it's raining. Can't see any umbrellas in the background, but it's Canada. There could be rain. There's always a possibility of some inclement weather conditions. And we'll have to wait and see as to who can kind of play out. I think that's why Canada this year, especially with the fact that Ferrari are looking better, McLaren are looking better, Red Bull are still struggling a little bit as well. It's just opened it up to where the Canadian Grand Prix could definitely be a very, very competitive one. Thank you, the Part 14, for subscribing, and Gina for subscribing as well. If you are new to the channel, I'd absolutely love you to hit that subscribe button. We're on our way now to 90,000. I should congratulate you. Thank you. All of those things. About 80,000 subscribers. A couple of thousand over that now, but 80,000 subscribers was hit recently. Absolutely bonkers to me that we are on our way, like, into the 90s, possibly even that silver play button that I've left a gap here for. Imagine a silver play button just hovering beautifully below the Singapore Grand Prix circuit behind me. Isn't that what we all dream of? Maybe just me, but I hope there's maybe a few of you in the chat actually that have been here for a very long time that do dream of that with me. Yeah, the 100,000 plaque would be absolutely amazing. Just moving again in the right direction as a channel. But if you haven't liked the stream already, and if you are new and you could subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. Where are we at? We've got 5 more minutes. I haven't touched on the 2026 regulations at all. I also haven't touched upon Esteban Ocon at all yet either. That is how much there's been going on, how much ridiculousness there has been this week in Formula One. It just feels like every single day there is something that is confirmed, not confirmed, just thrown out into the ether of the Formula One-ness. And I don't know, it's going to be... Should we talk about... I'm just trying to think what's going to take 6 minutes, because 2026 regulations, I feel like, is going to be a handful. Again, if you're not sure about the 2026 regulations, you want a little bit more information on those 2026 regulations, the top link in the description below is my video that I made on the 2026 regulations. Even if you've seen it before, maybe just have it open on a separate tab, you know, let it run through a couple of times. That'd be absolutely amazing. But it does run through everything that you need to know about the 2026 regulations that maybe we'll delve into in a little bit more detail later on as well. Let's talk Esteban Ocon for 5 minutes, because we've just talked Red Bull and all of their drivers kind of being confirmed over the week. How that leaves Carlos Sainz in a bit of a weird situation. I think Esteban Ocon's also in a very strange predicament, don't you think? Like, I know leaving Alpine does feel like the best thing for Esteban Ocon. He'll have been there 5 seasons. He's seen a lot in that time. He's seen numerous drivers come in alongside him. He's seen numerous drivers disappear. He has seen numerous team principals. He's seen numerous executive directors. He has seen a lot, has Esteban Ocon, in that 5 seasons with Alpine, and it is coming to an end. I just don't know where to place Esteban Ocon at this moment in time. If you've seen my 2025 driver lineup predictions, I placed him in Stakes Alba, but I placed him there because I thought Carlos Sainz might end up at Red Bull. Now that Carlos Sainz doesn't end up at Red Bull, Carlos Sainz is going to end up somewhere in that mix, right? Whether it's Williams or Stake, Alpine, Haas, he's going to end up somewhere in that quadrant of cars is Carlos Sainz, because that's all that's left available to him. And therefore, it does feel like Esteban Ocon has to kind of wait until Carlos Sainz is confirmed in there, right? Like, if you're Stake, Carlos Sainz is your first choice. If you're Williams, Carlos Sainz is your first choice. Esteban Ocon then is second choice at best, maybe third choice. Like, if you're Haas, Ollie Behrman is first choice to replace Nico Hulkenberg. I don't think Esteban Ocon is first choice. Like, I know that Esteban Ocon is a much more established driver than Ollie Behrman. I just think the connection that they've had with Ollie Behrman, the fact that they're having Ollie Behrman in the car for 6 free practice sessions, I think it is this year, possibly even more than that, just feels like Haas have already kind of set their stake out on Ollie Behrman. And to be fair, we do need new drivers coming in. Like, it's all well and good us recycling these drivers from place to place to place and kind of saying, well, Bottas can go here, Perez can go there, blah, 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 and like moving around the drivers that are always on there. But Ocon, I feel like it's a bold choice from Esteban Ocon. Whether it was the team, whether it was him, we haven't heard a lot of the behind the scenes of it. I think, after what happened in Monaco, he was not overly happy. The team were not overly happy. They've realized that they've kind of hit this fork in the road. And now Esteban Ocon has to go elsewhere. But I'd love to know where you think Esteban Ocon is going to end up, because I do think it's going to be really interesting. Jaden a sub, thank you. Jaden also says Ocon isn't deserving of a seat. He crashes too much. I think he has got a reputation as a difficult driver to kind of work with and a difficult driver to contain, if that makes sense. Like last weekend, or a couple of weekends ago, Alpine were talking about the fact that they sat both drivers down and were like, look, we need, both cars home. Both cars clean. We know that you're starting side by side, but it's Monaco. Don't do anything rash or stupid. And Ocon then just dive bombs his teammate. Ocon's putting himself in a weird position. Putting Ocon with Behrman is a big mistake. I don't. Yeah, does he replace Kevin Magnussen? He is an upgrade on Kevin Magnussen, but again, maybe Haas go with that idea. The fact that Kevin Magnussen has just been at Haas for so long. A little bit like what Red Bull have done with Sergio Perez, in my opinion. Just like better the driver that you know, rather than gambling on a new driver. Okay, we know that Sergio Perez isn't going to be world championship caliber, but he has been at Red Bull for a long time. He knows the systems. He knows how to kind of get the best from Max Verstappen, that relationship there. They've built that over time. Thank you, Raj, for subscribing as well. Maybe they do that with Kevin Magnussen. The fact they've got a rookie coming in Ollie Behrman. Maybe they don't want another driver to have to show around, to have to explain everything to have to build a relationship with. So maybe they don't, replace Kevin Magnussen right away. They wait until 2026 and then they replace Kevin Magnussen then. Like, could easily hold on to Kevin Magnussen for one more season at Haas. I could see that happening. Then that seat is gone for Esteban Ocon. As I said, at Williams and stake, I think first choice is Carlos Sainz. At Williams, I think second choice is kind of Kimi Antonelli, right? You're kind of mixing him in there. Kimi Antonelli could be a great driver for them to pick up. There's a lot of talent in F2. I don't know. It's very, very tricky. I will pop up not the race board. That's not what I wanted. The radio messages. We are starting to see a few drivers popping into the car. A few drivers actually already at the end of the pit lane. So we will be transitioning into our qualifying screen very, very soon. But you can see there, Logan Sargent, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, drivers that we're touching on and talking about, starting to get their radio messages. So another little reminder to Esteban Ocon, building the temperature in the tyres is going to be very, very big today. We've got Zhou Guanyu already at the end of the pits, both Alpines behind as well. Gasly and Ocon waiting at the end of the pit lane. I think that's Logan Sargent's Williams behind, and then an Aston Martin of somebody already in the pit lane as well. So the driver's not hesitating here, wanting to get out on track as quickly as possible. As I said, there is supposedly no rain during this session, but there's been a lot of rain over the weekend so far already, and it is a bit grey. I just don't think any of the teams want to really gamble with the rain, but should be no rain is what the weather forecast is saying. We're about 30 seconds out. As you can see, all of the drivers getting their radio messages in. 25 seconds to go. Lando Norris is told 20 seconds still to green light for the Oscar Piastri side of the garage. And here we go. We'll get underway. Let's get our qualifying board up for you. And you can see Zhou Guanyu and Pierre Gasly, as I said, the first two out on track. Ocon follows behind his teammate. Then also got Logan Sargent coming out behind as well. And actually a lot of cars getting themselves in the queue in the pit lane. But of course, doing that thing that is now become just a Formula One staple where the cars do line up in the pit lane and wait for the car in front to have a good gap towards them as well. Who do I think will collect P1? I think so. I think it's a mix, you know. Charles Leclerc. I think you can never doubt Charles Leclerc when it comes to a qualifying session. Lando Norris, I'd love to see pick up a pole position as well. Oh my. As I just said, the forecast that I'm getting, thanks to the guys at Multiviewer who support the stream and give us all of the data that you can see in front of you. Multiviewer and all of the radars that we've got are saying no rain. But now, supposedly, a few drops are coming in towards the circuit. And this is what I mean, Canada and the weather, unpredictable. Like, pointless to try and predict whether or not it's going to rain in Canada, because it always changes one way or another. We will sponsor you after my silver plaque. Monster. I mean, GSC, that would be absolutely amazing. Any kind of sponsor would be wonderful. Obviously, we're powered by Multiviewer. They're a sponsor in one way or another. You can also pick yourself up one of these incredible neon lights from Formula Neon. They've supported the channel for a very, very long time in that they have their product right here behind me. You can get 10% off using the code linked down below in the description. But there might be some more sponsorships coming. Don't you worry. Although we do have to remember, I will point out, this is still not my full-time job. So if things, you know, happen, and even though I would love a 100,000 subscriber plaque, that does not mean that the channel will change too much as of yet. Maybe one day. If I could go full-time one day, then we'd start to see some like dramatic increases in production. And maybe some more content more regularly. Although this week, I feel like I've been pretty good. I've had a little bit of time. But that would be the point, yeah, where things really step up another gear, in my opinion. Russell P3, I'm feeling, says Nisa. Isn't it a bit early for Kimi Antonelli? I said... The thing is, he's got a lot of testing programs coming up with Mercedes this season. So, could be. Let's say then, Zhou Guanyu and Pierre Gasly setting the standard. Zhou Guanyu are 125.7. A lot of traffic towards the back of the pack. Max Verstappen trying to go for a fast lap and finding the rear end of an Aston Martin and a Haas in his way towards the final couple of corners. But there is more of a lap from Max Verstappen. Zhou Guanyu and Gasly just going for a second run-up lap, I think. Verstappen gets us underway, though. Lando Norris, man who I mentioned before, who I do have a little inkling could put himself on pole position. Going fastest in the first sector, fastest in the second sector, and goes to the top of the timing sheets. A 1:14.5 from Lando Norris. Now, of course, Grand Prix winner Lando Norris after the Miami Grand Prix weekend. Verstappen second fastest and Perez third. Ooh, Carlos Sainz getting all out of shape at turn 1 into turn 2. And that's going to be a lap that is abandoned from the Spaniard. Carlos Sainz still searching for his Formula One future. Techno Champ, thank you so much for the subscription. In fact, I'm just going to move this because there actually is space for it with the Canadian Grand Prix map, which is quite nice. Shuffle it there. See if that works. Lance Stroll, his home Grand Prix, was going fairly swiftly through the first sector. That first sector purple time has been taken away, but it's looking quick from Lance Stroll. It's fastest by 6/100ths of a second. Hello, Lance Stroll. Here comes George Russell, who actually took that fastest first sector time from the Aston Martin. Lance Stroll now fastest in the final sector. Sergio Perez complaining of low grip. George Russell is flying. Fastest in the second sector, 5/10 up on Lance Stroll. Of course, it is still Q1. We're only looking for the bottom 5 drivers overall, but we love to see a good flying lap when they're out there, and George Russell really going for it. Lewis Hamilton down on his teammate in the first and second sectors, though, behind. Fernando Alonso now outdoes his teammate by a 10th, but George Russell absolutely flying, almost gets us into the 113s, a 114 dead from George Russell. Lewis Hamilton goes 4th fastest as Oscar Piastri puts himself 3/10 off the pace in second place. Absolutely stunning laps coming from the top teams at the moment. Lance Stroll almost making contact with the wall of champions. Does he even clip it? It's millimeters in it for Lance Stroll at that time, but you can see the track just getting so much quicker and the track developing every single lap. Kevin Magnussen also getting very close to a 113 lap time, a 114 dead from Kevin Magnussen as well. Alex Albon comes across the line and goes 4th fastest. Carlos Sainz finally gets a lap in and goes 3rd. But it's going to be Lando Norris once again, who is the first driver to get into the 13s. A 113.5 from Lando Norris puts him top of the tree so far. Of the drivers that have finished laps then, has everybody gone round and done one? They have indeed. So it is Lance Stroll, Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, Zhou Guanyu, and Yuki Tsunoda, the 5 drivers in the drop zone right now. And Lance Stroll's just gone quickest again in the first sector of anybody. The Aston Martin, though, not quite as quick through the middle sector in the hands of Lance Stroll. He's dropped all the way down to 9th fastest now. It just shows how quickly this track is evolving and how quickly these lap times are starting to tumble. The first sector is taken by Max Verstappen now. Fastest through there is the current world champion. Yellow flag in the first sector, taken away very quickly though, so maybe just a little wobble for somebody. Lance Stroll 0.02 of a second slower, and Logan Sargent goes 5th fastest. Daniel Ricciardo much better from the Australian into the 113s as well. So 3 drivers in the 113s at this moment in time. Max Verstappen down in 17th, but is now coming across the line. DRS open for Max Verstappen, and there is something we have got used to seeing. Max Verstappen at the top of the timing sheets once again, a 113.3 from the Dutchman. Puts Sergio Perez in 16th place, actually matching Lewis Hamilton's time for 15th, but then Nico Hülkenberg improves and drops both of them down into the bottom 5. So our bottom 5 currently, Hamilton, Perez, Gasly, Ocon, and Zhou. But to be honest with you, the track is developing so quick. Oh, and Lance Stroll, I did clip the wall this time around. That's twice now that Lance Stroll at that final turn. Ooh, and might even, I don't know. Like, the cars don't look wide enough that you can actually break track limits at the Wall of Champions. But Lance Stroll might have done it. Because he was in the wall for a very small amount of time there. And Lance Stroll, 3rd fastest time. First of these drivers to get into the 113s. Behind Lando Norris, but then Max Verstappen's taking it. Now, quite a few drivers in the 113s, all the way down to Daniel Ricciardo, George Russell, a 114 dead. Carlos Sainz in 13th right now. Is just about to finish his flying lap. Comes across the line as Carlos Sainz, and it's quicker than his teammate, but still only 5th fastest of everybody. Lewis Hamilton is in the bottom 5 at this moment in time. A few drivers coming into the pits to swap onto a new set of soft compound tyres. Norris and Stroll already in the pits. Ricciardo in the pits as well. Magnussen, Hülkenberg, Bottas, Sargent, Tsunoda, Piastri, Gasly, Ocon, Zhou, all in the pit lane at this moment in time. But Lewis Hamilton staying out on track in his Mercedes and goes fastest in the middle sector as Lewis Hamilton with a 23.1 through that middle portion of the track. His teammate George Russell has just gone quickest of anybody by a tenth with a 113.2. Can Lewis Hamilton improve on that? Mercedes car, DRS wide open and comes across the line. It's only third fastest. Just a couple attempts off of his teammate. Lewis Hamilton there slots in and makes a Max Verstappen sandwich in the top three, dropping Oscar Piastri down into the bottom five for McLaren. So it is Piastri, Perez, Gasly, Ocon, and Joe that need to improve. We've got Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc still out on track. Verstappen and Perez out on track as well. And Oscar Piastri complaining about impeding. And yeah, Hamilton and Tsunoda costing Oscar Piastri a good chunk of lap time there. And considering he's only 7 thousandths of a second, I think, was it? Outside of the top 15. Oh no, a little bit further. 7 hundredths of a second outside of the top 15. And it is Yuki Tsunoda in the way, actually. So Oscar Piastri will be a little bit frustrated about that. And Charles Leclerc also complaining about traffic down into turn 1, with drivers not being able to get out of the way of the Ferrari. Is feeling very congested at the circuit, the Jacques Villeneuve at the moment. No. Is it named after Jacques Villeneuve? I don't think so. Just Villeneuve, isn't it? Perez proving the haters wrong with another Q1 exit. Yeah. New contract for Sergio Perez. Same old Sergio Perez. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, not looking great for the Red Bull driver. And the Q1 exit in Monaco does not want to go back-to-back Q1 eliminations. The Mexican driver needs to improve, though, in 17th place at this moment in time. Max did 6 laps on those soft compound tires. A few drivers went for a couple of runs. I think the tire wear is not as heavy as some teams were expecting, and also the fact that the temperatures are a little bit lower just means you can run these tires just a touch longer and kind of go for 2 push laps instead of just the 1. Sergio Perez, though, coming into the pits for a new set of tires. Oh yeah, those set of tires had done 7 laps. Sergio Perez still down there, though, and into the pits. Going to be a swift stop, you'd imagine, for Sergio Perez. With 5 minutes left on the clock. They are going to pull the Red Bull back into the garage very, very quickly. Chuck some more fuel in there. Yeah, it is Gilles. I just said Jack. I think it's because Jack has been on the commentary. It is named after Gilles, yeah. Lance and Oscar's home GP podium. Is Oscar Canadian? Where have you got this from? Oscar does have a home Grand Prix. You know he's Australian, right? We did have the Australian Grand Prix. I think Piastri will ever switch teams. I hope not, to be honest with you, because I think he is absolutely phenomenal. I did a video on Oscar Piastri a couple of weeks ago where I think he is just like 2 or 3 tiny little things away from being an absolutely sublime Formula 1 driver. So I really hope that Oscar Piastri does not ever leave McLaren. Here is Pierre Gasly, and Gasly has gone second fastest of anybody. So the lap times, this is where it's about to get serious. Oscar Piastri, 17th fastest, goes up to 11th fastest at this moment in time. Not a huge gain from Oscar Piastri. Lance Stroll comes across the line, goes quickest. Lance Stroll is absolutely determined to do something special here at his home Grand Prix this weekend. He gets ahead of Fernando Alonso, who drops in to second fastest. Logan Sargent comes across the line and goes 5th fastest of anybody. We've got Daniel Ricciardo coming around the final couple of corners. Here is the RB of Ricciardo. Let's see. Goes 8th fastest. It really is game on. Like, anybody could drop out of this qualifying session. Really does seem like all 20 cars are absolutely pushing it out there. And of those drivers, Lando Norris has just gone quickest. Lando Norris a 1:12.9. Lovely. GP asking for a little bit more detailed feedback from Max Verstappen, who is just saying that the car is shit. But Lando Norris, as I was saying before, the first driver to get into the 112s in terms of lap times now. So they're just starting to push it a little bit further. Absolutely smashing it at this moment in time is Lando Norris. Stroll with the party mode engine, maybe. Just turning it up for this weekend. Seeing if they can get something special for his home Grand Prix in front of the Canadian fans. Turned up to a very wet couple of days in Canada, but now getting some dry weather running for the competitive qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton finds a 10th on Lando Norris. Hamilton, Tsunoda, and Piastri. No further investigation for that turn 4 impeding. So Tsunoda and Hamilton have gotten away with one there. It feel like Piastri was impeded in one way or another. Doesn't look like Piastri's going to make it to Q2 though. I like Toast saying it would be sad if he doesn't make it. Still down in 16th place with Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg comes across the line, doesn't improve Hulkenberg. Still a 1:13.9, so Hulkenberg struggling in the Haas. Bottas, Joe, and Sergio Perez is currently the slowest driver of anybody right now in 20th place. Charles Leclerc goes quickest in the final sector to go 6th fastest. Bottas actually drags himself out of the bottom 5 for now. That's much better from Oscar Piastri, and that'll get you through. A 1:12.9 from Piastri puts him 2nd fastest of anybody, and we can all sigh. Whew. Close. Max Verstappen, though, the man on the bubble in 15th place right now, Verstappen. He's gone quickest in the first sector. He's gone quickest in the second sector. I think he might improve his lap time here, Max Verstappen. He might be 15th now. He's not going to be 15th for long as he goes through the final chicane past the wall of champions. DRS is opened in Max Verstappen's Red Bull. Quite a long run to the finish line. And Verstappen shakes the checkered flag with a 1:12.3. And it is sublime. Yuki Tsunoda can also take a little bit of a bow. He's only 4 tenths off Max Verstappen. That puts Bottas in the bottom 5 and out. Alex Albon is going to try and take Perez. And does. Alex Albon goes 4th fastest. And the ex-Williams man takes Sergio Perez out. Confirmation of Sergio Perez's contract tick. Confirmation of Sergio Perez dropping out of qualifying in Q1 once again. Tick. And Hugh Bird, Sergio Perez's race engineer there, just confirming it with the Mexican. So it is Perez, Bottas, Ocon, Hulkenberg, and Joe. The Red Bull garage look on in frustration. Max Verstappen, quickest of anybody. Max Verstappen, current world champion. Sergio Perez, 16th fastest with 2 years extended onto his contract. Some other names to notice. Alex Albon up in 4th place for Williams. Got to remember, Williams were really quick here in Canada last year. So it could be another Alex Albon masterclass coming for the Canadian Grand Prix once again. You might remember he did some sublime defensive work last year and finished in 7th place. Logan Sargent, also, whilst we talk about Williams, up in 9th place. Stunning from Logan Sargent in comparison to what we generally expect from the American driver. I know it's a bit harsh to say, but Logan Sargent also driving for his life with the likes of Carlos Sainz, with the likes of Esteban Ocon being linked to that Williams seat. Logan Sargent desperate to do something to prove that he is worthy of that Williams spot. And 9th place in Canada's Q1 qualifying, not there yet, but a move in the right direction for Logan Sargent. Kevin Magnussen also has out-qualified his teammate there, Nico Hülkenberg. And it doesn't feel like we've said that very often over the course of that kind of pairing at Haas. Obviously, Nico Hülkenberg leaving at the end of the year. We even discussed whether or not Kevin Magnussen would stay for another year at Haas before qualifying got underway. Just showing that he does still have a little bit in the tank. It would be nice to see Kevin Magnussen get a top 10, because Nico Hülkenberg has been pretty much a Q3 merchant so far this season. Kevin Magnussen needs a couple of those to just prove that he's alongside Nico Hülkenberg in terms of pace. Daniel Ricciardo also getting through in 14th place. Gasly sneaking through again, outperforming his teammate. Ocon is out. Gasly is through. Gasly obviously staying on with Alpine, whilst Esteban Ocon is guaranteed to be leaving the French outfit at the end of the season. He has 14 races left in blue before he disappears after 5 years with the team. Piastri and Norris side by side in 5th and 6th place there. I'll tell you what, the Mercedes car is looking a lot quicker than I was expecting them to be. It's been a real up and down season for Mercedes once again. 4th in the Constructors' Championship by a considerable margin. A lot of the talk has been about Ferrari and McLaren, obviously, because they've been able to pick up victories so far this season, but Mercedes trying to put themselves in that mix once again. Both of the Aston Martins also through. Is to be expected. They are the 5th fastest car, but Lance Stroll has had a few qualifying sessions this season that have not run his way. And there's Sergio Perez in his Red Bull, out of qualifying and frustrated, tapping on the inside of the halo in his Red Bull. Looks on in anguish at this moment in time, does Sergio Perez. Obviously, the Red Bull team have already made their decision to keep Sergio Perez for the foreseeable future. Continuity, wanting to keep that driver pairing the same, but can they afford this kind of performance when Ferrari are looking quicker, when McLaren are looking quicker? It's going to be very, very interesting to see how that dynamic at Red Bull continues to develop. But we are now heading into Q2, 15 minutes on the clock here in Canada. We've got some cars again lining up in the pits already. There is Lewis Hamilton at the front of the pack, already past the start-finish line. We've got Kevin Magnussen joining Lewis Hamilton towards the front of the queue as well, but drivers wanted to get out as quickly as possible. Again, we're just looking for that bottom 5. So Perez, Bottas, Ocon, Hülkenberg, and Zhou out of qualifying now from Q1. They'll start in 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th, respectively. We're now looking for another 5 drivers to drop out. So 11th through to 15th place will be locked in at this moment in time. And then, of course, we are heading into Q3, where the real business is done. And we'll find out who is going to start on pole position for this Canadian Grand Prix. Both of the Mercedes cars at the front of the queue. Max Verstappen actually trying to sneak his way in, slotting in behind Oscar Piastri at this point. We're about to get underway in Q2. If you are new to the channel, if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be absolutely amazing. We are live for every single competitive Formula One session throughout the season. We're live for every single qualifying, every single race, sprint qualifying, sprint races as well. That would be absolutely amazing if you could get involved, as we're on our way to now 90,000 subscribers on the channel. And also, if you could leave a like, that would be absolutely amazing. We beat our like goal by a ridiculous margin last time out in Monaco. I think we're going to have to set some new like targets for the foreseeable future. Christian Horner there on the Red Bull pit wall. Not very happy at all, I would imagine, with Sergio Perez. We are now underway, though. So hit that like button, hit subscribe, as I was saying before. And if you want to know anything about the 2026 regulations, I made a quick fire video describing everything that you need to know about 2026 and what is to come from those cars. Max Verstappen was trying to get in the queue, but hasn't been able to. And the RB of Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda making their way past Williams's as well. And the Williams letting Max Verstappen out, getting very awkward with Max Verstappen trying to make his way into the pack there. Ooh. Lando Norris being told on the radio, spots of rain in turn 7 and turn 8. And looking at the weather radar, the clouds have still look quite far away from the circuit in terms of the radar that we were looking at there. But it is Canada. And as I say, just the weather is the weather at Canada. There's no point in trying to predict it. It could be bone dry for the whole weekend. Well, it's already been raining on Friday, but could be bone dry for qualifying and the race. Could easily just start absolutely hammering it down and be the most rain that you've ever seen in your life. Could go either way. There was hailstorm. I think it was on Thursday when the drivers turned up to the track for the first time this weekend. Hail, and literally like hailstones the size of marbles. Ridiculous. Anyway, we are underway in Q2, and we're going to start to see some fast laps coming in. So, George Russell is going to set the standard in terms of fast laps. Lewis Hamilton is going to be just behind him as well. Kevin Magnussen is actually going to set the third fast lap. We are seeing a little bit of traffic now as Russell has to try and get past the likes of Verstappen, Sargent, Albon getting out of the way of Kevin Magnussen. So 15 cars out on track, and it's going to be a little bit kind of finding your spot in the running order. Daniel Ricciardo and Gasly starting their flying lap, but George Russell, as I said, being the first man to set a full lap time, and it's a 1:13.1 from George Russell. You'd expect that to improve. Lewis Hamilton, quickest in the middle sector. Can he improve on his teammates' time? Yes. A 1:13.1 is 2/100ths of a second. Thank you, Felix, for subscribing. Thank you, Ryan, for subscribing to the channel. Massively appreciate it. What's happening with Leclerc? Nothing at this moment in time from what I can see. Just getting prepared for a fast lap. Lando Norris slots into 4th fastest, and that is the slowest of the lap times we've had so far. Oscar Piastri, quickest through the middle sector, quickest through the final sector. And there is 0.6 of a second found from Oscar Piastri, a 1:12.4. Stunning. Max Verstappen, a little bit off Oscar Piastri's pace. Just want to see, are these used tyres on Max Verstappen's car? No, they are fresh tyres for Max Verstappen, and just doesn't seem... Well, he's going to slot in close to Oscar Piastri's time. It's not going to be like an obscene amount out, but not where you'd expect Max Verstappen to be. 0.6 off Oscar Piastri. Interesting. Oh, no, it was slightly used from Max Verstappen, wasn't it? There you go, yeah, 3 laps. So he had used them for a lap before. Fair enough. But Oscar Piastri still quicker. Alex Albon comes across the line, 7th fastest. Carlos Sainz goes 2nd fastest. Still like 0.6 off the pace, though. So Oscar Piastri in a world of his own right now with that 1:12.4. Ricciardo and Tsunoda going for a second run-up lap. Gasly joining them. Logan Sargent is the only one with a full flying lap time in 11th place. And then Charles Leclerc comes across the line, goes 2nd fastest, 0.3 off of Oscar Piastri. puts Alex Albon in the bottom 5. Here is Yuki Tsunoda coming across the line. 4th fastest for the V-Carb. And Lance Stroll then drops into the bottom 5. Daniel Ricciardo also puts his ex-teammate Lando Norris into 11th place as he outperforms Yuki Tsunoda by half a tenth. Gasly comes across the line, only 14th fastest. Russell looking to improve. Does. George Russell a 112.3 in the Mercedes. These lap times starting to hot up here in Q2. Norris, Stroll, Albon, Gasly, and Sargent need to improve if they want to make their way into the final qualifying session and have their chance at a possible pole position. Max Verstappen on the radio, not very happy with a Mercedes car in front of him, and I don't know which Mercedes that was. Not sure whether it was Russell or Hamilton, but Max Verstappen not overly pleased with whoever it was in front of him. Lewis Hamilton getting very, very close to the wall of champions. And that final chicane, getting sideways as he went into the chicane, Lewis Hamilton. A little bit of a drift from Lewis as he entered the chicane towards the end of the track at turn 13. Logan Sargent, though, 15th fastest at this moment in time. It's a good sector 1 from Logan Sargent, improving on his lap time before, but still 3.5 tenths off Carlos Sainz as he finishes the second sector. Ooh. Oh. Alex Albon has broken a cross thread on one of the tires, and they're struggling to get the wheel off Alex Albon's car. So that's why Alex Albon struggling in the pit lane. Wow. Gonna have to check everything over on Alex Albon's car. He's down in 14th place then, as Logan Sargent did improve on his lap time, as I said, but not quite able to get out of the top into the top 10, 3 tenths off Carlos Sainz's time. Max Verstappen surprisingly down in 11th place. As I said, it just wasn't a very Max Verstappen time as he came across the line. He was 6 tenths off Oscar Piastri. But now Max Verstappen looking to improve upon that. Let's keep an eye on his first sector time and see how close it is to George Russell. It's only a half a tenth up on Carlos Sainz's time in 10th place. Not sublimely quick from Max Verstappen through that first sector. Again, on a used set of tyres, though, Max Verstappen. Red Bull maybe just trying to keep a set of fresh soft compound tyres in hand. 7 thousandths of a second up on Carlos Sainz. It's not, I don't know, Max Verstappen's 50-50 as to whether he's going to get into the top 10 here with 6.5 minutes left to go. Oh, rain expected in 9 minutes. What we could really do with is the rain coming before Q3, not during Q3. During Q3, ruins. Before Q3, interesting. Max Verstappen comes across the line, does improve on Carlos Sainz's time, but only just. It's by a tenth or so. Does put Carlos Sainz into the bottom 5. But Carlos Sainz is on a flying lap right now. The Spaniard just coming through turn 13 and 14, past the wall of champions, DRS wide open. Can he get himself up into the top 10? Yes, 8th fastest from Carlos Sainz. That puts Yuki Tsunoda, who's literally been guaranteed to stay at RB today, into the bottom 5. 11th place Yuki Tsunoda right now. Lance Stroll is 12th fastest. Sargent, Albon, and Gasly 13th, 14th, and 15th at this moment in time for Williams and Alpine. So at this moment in time, it's Tsunoda, Stroll, Sargent, Albon, and Gasly that will be out of qualifying. And our top 10 will be Russell, Piastri, Hamilton, Norris, Leclerc, Alonso, Magnussen, Sainz, Ricciardo, and Verstappen battling it out for pole position here in Canada. How do I differentiate between used and new tyres? So if you look across over there to the graphic, next to the symbol for the tyre, which is a little red circle with an S because they're using the soft compound, Tells you how many laps they have done on that tyre. If that is 0 when they come out of the pits, then that is a fresh set of tyres. Or if it is a 1 when they're on their flying lap, that is a fresh set of tyres. Anything higher than 1 is a used set of tyres. So you can see Daniel Ricciardo there is a really good example. In 9th place, he's now just come out of the pit lane. So if you look at the track, he's just coming around turn 2 and coming towards turn 3 and turn 4. He has got a 0 next to him. So it's Daniel Ricciardo on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. That is how I tell who is on what tyres. Ricciardo going to Q3. Looking like it at this moment in time. 9th fastest at the moment. If it were to end now, he would be in there. He would also be the highest ranked Red Bull powered car. He is ahead of Max Verstappen in 10th, Yuki Tsunoda in 11th, and Sergio Perez out of the running in 16th place. Red Bull having another weekend where it's looking a bit 50-50 at this moment in time, but never count out Max Verstappen. I think if we learned anything over the last 3 or 4 years in Formula 1, never count out Max Verstappen until it is done. Alex Albon, though, on a flying lap in his Williams, looking to improve on Max Verstappen's time. Of course, used to be teammates at Red Bull. Alex Albon was gotten rid of for Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez remains in the team. Alex Albon, though, looking to outperform both Red Bulls if possible in his Williams car. He is 0.08 of a second quicker than Max Verstappen through the middle sector. So trying his best. Logan Sargent actually comes across the line. A 112.7 from Sargent puts him 5th fastest and does drop Max Verstappen into the bottom 5. Max Verstappen now on an outlap, though, so it's not over and done with yet for the Red Bull and reigning world champion. Go on then, Albon. Let's get it across the line. 8th fastest. Albon being outperformed by Logan Sargent. Also not something that we see very often, but Sargent looking to have really clicked into gear. Lando Norris comes across the line and sets a 112.2. So Norris looking very likely indeed to get into Q3. Fastest lap so far of anybody. His teammate Oscar Piastri, a couple attempts off in 3rd place. Oh, Charles Leclerc. Expecting some drops of rain at the checkered flag. So no rain during this qualifying session. Might come into play in Q3, but we've got to get there first. Daniel Ricciardo across the line, 4th fastest with 2 minutes left to go. Yuki Tsunoda's going to come across the line as well. Goes 2nd fastest as Yuki Tsunoda in the RB. He's a 10th off Lando Norris's time, and Yuki Tsunoda confirmed for RB's future and confirming that he is absolutely flying in that midfield RB this season. Undoubtedly best of the rest so far. Here is Max Verstappen, 2.5 tenths up on Charles Leclerc's time in 10th as he goes through the first sector. It's not purple, though, from Max Verstappen. He is still in the bottom 5 at this moment in time. It's Albon, Magnussen, Sainz, Verstappen, and Gasly. Ooh, Max Verstappen gets a little bit out of shape through turn 9, up towards the turn 10 hairpin. He's still 2.5 tenths up on now Logan Sargent's time, who is in 10th place, as Charles Leclerc puts himself up into 9th. But Verstappen is looking like he's going to improve on both of their times and get himself up out of this bottom 5. Verstappen now coming down the back straight towards turn 13, through 14 as well. Carry as much speed as you can, get as close to that wall without touching, and gets across the line. 5th fastest does Verstappen, a 112.5 from him. That should be good enough to get him through. Sargent and Albon then in the Williams dropping down into the bottom 5. Hamilton trying to improve on 7th fastest. Goes quickest. Lewis Hamilton, the first man into the 111s. A 111.9 from Lewis Hamilton is sublime. And we were worried about we were worried about Max Verstappen. Let's start worrying about Charles Leclerc. He was very slow through the first and second sectors with Charles Leclerc. He might just get across the line before the checkered flag. He's all out of shape through 13 and 14. Carlos Sainz stays in the bottom 5. Carlos Sainz is going to be out. And Charles Leclerc into the pits. Albon across the line. And both Ferraris are out of qualifying. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz have been sent home. Wow. Ollie Behrman there looking on at the Ferrari team. And Charles Leclerc in the pits. 11th fastest. Doesn't even want to stay in the car as they wheel it back into the garage. Oh, Charles Leclerc, very, very frustrated. Does not want to comment. There's Charles Leclerc. A track that he absolutely loves, Charles Leclerc. And a track he is going to start 11th place on tomorrow. Carlos Sainz will start beside him in 12th. Logan Sargent joins them in that bottom 5 of Q2. With Sargent 13th, Kevin Magnussen 14th, and Pierre Gasly will start in 15th place. So, to round out the 10 drivers out so far, Leclerc, Sainz, Sargent, Magnussen, and Gasly drop out in Q2, and they're joining Perez, Bottas, Ocon, Hülkenberg, and Zhou, who dropped out during Q1. So that is both Ferraris and a Red Bull out of qualifying before Q3. We're looking at Albon making it through. We're looking at Tsunoda and Ricciardo making it through in the V-Carb cars. And also, you know, the cars we expect. Russell, Hamilton, Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Alonso, Stroll in Q3 as well. Goodness gracious me. Ferrari. What? I don't even know what to say. For just Ferrari, what on earth happened there? Like maybe one of you drop out. Both Ferraris out in Q2. Both Ferraris starting outside the points tomorrow. This is a big opportunity for McLaren to pick up some solid points going forward to maybe make up some ground on Ferrari. Similarly, could be said for Mercedes. Mercedes in Q1. P1 and P2 with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton both in the 111s. Stunning from the Mercedes team. Mercedes really looking like they turned something around this weekend here in Canada. Lando Norris third with a 112.2. Yuki Tsunoda, the 4th fastest car out there. And Tsunoda is a name that we've seen in Q3 quite a lot this season, but still has to be celebrated when Yuki Tsunoda manages to put that RB car into the top 10 and continue to show his dominance in that RB over the rest of the midfield cars. Oscar Piastri was 5th fastest in that qualifying session. Alex Albon 6th fastest. Verstappen, Ricciardo, Alonso, and Stroll will also battle it out for pole position. I do just want to very quickly see the sector times. Like, absolutely stunning from Mercedes. Look at those sector times. Russell, Hamilton, Russell dominating the sector 1, 2, and 3 lap times. Hamilton and Russell also exchanging 1st and 2nd place in sector 1 and sector 2. Piastri and Norris also looking very quick indeed. Max Verstappen was a little bit better than 7th place. If he could get his perfect lap together. So this is the driver's perfect lap times, if that makes sense. So George Russell's best 1st sector, his best 2nd sector, his best 3rd sector. So you can see there is the pace there in the Red Bull. Like, Max Verstappen is only 4th fastest in the 1st and 2nd sector and 2nd fastest in the final sector. Just couldn't quite get the perfect lap time together, could Max Verstappen, it looks like, and therefore only managed 7th place. Yuki Tsunoda right there, though, 6th in terms of his best sector times. Leclerc and Sainz just couldn't get it together, though. You can see Leclerc 8th, then 12th, then 6th. Sainz 13th, 7th, 16th, just really struggling to really find the balance for all 3 sectors are the Ferrari cars. Just Charles Leclerc finding it in the 1st and last sectors where there is a little bit more straight line speed needed. Carlos Sainz looking a bit better in the middle sector, which is a little bit more twisty, but neither Ferrari able to make it through even with those lap times. Alex Albon looking stunning in the first and second sectors as well. Little bit of lap time lost from the Williams in the third sector. Not what you'd expect, considering it was a straight line speed merchant last year, was the Williams. But that's where we are right now in terms of those sector times. I do want to know, is there anybody who's broken track limits so far? Carlos Sainz with a couple of violations. Maybe there was a lap time deleted. I know one of those violations came in Q1. I don't know where that second violation came from Kevin Magnussen. Hamilton and Russell also pushing their cars to the absolute limits. I don't think there were any investigations that went through. A few investigations for impeding, but no, they've all been done and dusted. And as you can see from the red little magnifying glass, nothing to be done about them. Max Verstappen was under investigation for not following instructions, but that seems to have been done and dusted as well, and no punishment given. Very interesting indeed. Let's see what the drivers are saying. Just getting set up for the final run in Q3. As I said before, Q1 and Q2. If you are not subscribed to the channel, I would massively, massively appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, as the rain looks like it might be on its way. As I said, what we would like here is it to rain now, so that it rains before qualifying 3. If it rains during qualifying 3, it just kind of ruins it, because the fastest laps will have already been set on the dry track before the session gets underway. So what we need is just rain, torrential rain now, would really make this session interesting. By far the most entertaining qualification of the season. Do you think? Well, we're not there yet. Feel like we need a little battle for pole position would be lovely, but it's definitely one of the most interesting qualifying sessions of the season. It's massively mixed, you know. I know that we've got 2 Mercedes, 2 McLarens up at the top, 2 Aston Martins is also fairly regular in terms of the top 10 drivers, but the fact that we have got a Williams in there with Albon. As I said, Alex Albon was absolutely stunning in Canada last year, and just showing that he does really love the Canadian Grand Prix. In fact, I was listening to the podcast that the Williams team have with Alex Albon and Logan Sargent, and Alex Albon said that this track is one of his top 3 tracks of the season, and just showing he really does absolutely know his way around the Canadian Grand Prix circuit as well, getting it up into the top 10. Some points on the cards for Alex Albon would be amazing for them as well this weekend, and just sort of looking to at least show their teeth a touch in the battle with RB, and Alpine also picking up some points. Stakes Alba looking dead and buried though. 17th and 20th for them. Bottas and Joe not looking great at all. Anyhow, let's get into this final qualifying session. We've got Lando Norris coming out first of everybody. Max Verstappen following closely behind. Oh no, sorry, Oscar Piastri coming out first of anybody. Verstappen, then Norris coming out third. So it's going to be Piastri to set the standard. Fernando Alonso coming out with Lance Stroll right behind him as well. No rain, unfortunately, during the stoppage between Q2 and Q3. So it's going to be a dry first few laps. Now we want to hope that it doesn't rain. So that's how this works. Now that we don't have any rain, we want no rain at all. Because again, if it rains halfway through the session, just kind of calls an end to it early, as opposed to making it any more interesting. Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Albon making their way out. 2 of those 3 names we have not been used to saying in Q3, but Yuki Tsunoda leading them, not only in the championship, also out on track as well. Ricciardo slots in behind his teammate, and Albon will come out last of that trio. Oscar Piastri is going to get us underway. So Piastri just coming through turn 1 on his first flying lap. Needs to worry about Albon and Ricciardo and Tsunoda towards the end of the lap, getting past that little bit of traffic. Verstappen is also starting his flying lap. Lando Norris coming across the line and starting his first flying lap. They're going to be the 3 to kind of really keep an eye on for setting the lap time standard. Mercedes cars, interestingly, staying in the garage with only 8 cars out on track. Hamilton and Russell clearly going for a different kind of strategy. Piastri is outdone in the first sector. Max Verstappen gets a quicker first sector than Piastri. Lando Norris also slotting in behind both of them. Couple attempts down is Lando Norris. Max Verstappen quickest in the first sector of anybody so far. Tsunoda, Ricciardo and Albon are going to start their flying laps as Oscar Piastri finishes his and sets the standard at a 1:12.7. That does feel like you're going to have to be quite a bit quicker than that to get pole, especially as Max Verstappen then sets a 1:12.3. Remember, both McLarens a little bit quicker than that beforehand, and both Mercedes up into the 1:11s. Lando Norris a second off the pace, and not very quick at all from Lando Norris there. Fernando Alonso, though, you would think would improve on Norris's time. Goes for a 1:12.7. So it's 4 tenths off the pace. Lance Stroll at his home Grand Prix is just making his way around the final couple of corners. Goes across the line and just slower than his teammate. Slots into 4th place. Albon, Tsunoda and Ricciardo making their way through the final sector. It's going to be Tsunoda through the final chicane first to see who comes out on top in this kind of midfield battle that we've also got inside of the top 10. Tsunoda and Albon are much quicker. Oh, it was another build-up lap. Must have been from Tsunoda. 9 seconds off the pace. Albon, though, 8 tenths off. Ricciardo also clearly going for a second kind of build-up lap. And should have said that the Mercedes cars are now out on track. George Russell starting to set his first flying lap time, and Lewis Hamilton has just come round turn 1 as well. Currently, Max Verstappen quickest of anybody with a 1:12.3. Can somebody outdo the current championship leader? George Russell up nearly 2 tenths in the first sector. Wow. Lewis Hamilton also then even quicker through the first sector. The Mercedes cars look stunningly quick throughout this qualifying session. Look like they could be in the real mix for picking up a pole position. George Russell quickest through the middle sector, and Lewis Hamilton not far off his teammate either. It does feel like both of the Mercedes are going to be 1-2 here, and it's going to be more about who is where. Yuki Tsunoda, second off the pace, though, in the RB. Daniel Ricciardo, can he go any quicker? No, stays 8th fastest. That's soon going to become 10th, though, because George Russell comes across the line. It's a 1:12 dead from George Russell. Can Lewis Hamilton improve on his teammate? Oh, it's close. A 1:12.2 from Lewis Hamilton. As I said, it's a 1-2 from Mercedes. Very, very quick indeed. Verstappen slots in 3rd so far. Piastri 4th. Alonso, Stroll, Albon, Tsunoda, Norris, then Ricciardo currently are top 10 at this moment in time. Just to remind you, the 10 that are out so far. In 11th place tomorrow, we'll see Charles Leclerc. 12th place, Carlos Sainz. Logan Sargent in 13th. Kevin Magnussen 14th. And Pierre Gasly 15th. They were the 5 drivers we lost in Q2. With Sergio Perez starting 16th tomorrow. Bottas starting 17th. Ocon starting 18th. Hulkenberg starting 19th. And Zhou Guanyu starting at the back of the pack. They were the 5 drivers that we lost in Q1 earlier on. But it is the Mercedes cars once again setting the standard for qualifying here in Canada. They have gotten rid of their front wing. It was kind of a very different look front wing to the Mercedes car at the beginning of this season. They were trying something a little bit different with a few little cutouts and various bits and pieces. They've decided to get rid of that. Oh, and a Haas engineer of some sorts making their way across the pit lane, nearly run over by Oscar Piastri. That could have been very awkward indeed. But yeah, as I was saying, Mercedes, a new look front wing on that Mercedes car, and suddenly maybe they've got a little bit more pace than we expected them to have throughout this 2024 season. We are only 8 races into the year as well. There's a lot of time for Mercedes to start catching up to the likes of Ferrari and McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, possibly even Red Bull if Sergio Perez is going to continue to put himself out in Q1, as he has now 2 races in a row. Monaco, disaster, and now a 16th place here in Canada from Sergio Perez. Both Ferrari cars also dropping out is another sort of stab in the heart for Ferrari fans throughout this season. It was looking better and better and better, and now an 11th and a 12th place start. Oscar Piastri is on a flying lap, by the way, should say. Coming down the back straight now is Oscar Piastri. Oh, no, sorry. Heading up towards, still in the middle sector, heading towards the hairpin now and finishing that second sector. Oscar Piastri is a couple attempts off George Russell's time, though. Is improving, but not looking like he is going to set pole position standard laps. Oscar Piastri right now. Alex Albon is also out on track with Lando Norris. So those 3 are the only 3. I'm sure we will see Russell, Hamilton, and Verstappen come out once more. Ooh, Oscar Piastri, a much better final sector, but still a 10th off George Russell's 112.0, a 112.1 from Oscar Piastri. Very, very close indeed. Hamilton then in 3rd place now. Lando Norris also improving on his lap time quite dramatically, but still not quick enough to be quickest in the 1st or 2nd sectors. Needs to improve, though. Only 9th fastest in his first run was Lando Norris. Takes his way through the final chicane, across the line. 0.02 of a second off George Russell's time. Gets applause from the McLaren garage, but not quite there from Lando Norris. Will he have another go at it? It's got a couple more minutes to go as Lando Norris could go at it again on this set of tyres. Be a bit of a risk, though. Here's Max Verstappen, our current world champion, making his way out of the pit lane. The Dutchman looking to improve. Currently 5th fastest of anybody out on track. Is on an outlap. Both of the Mercedes cars, again, waiting towards the end here. Both Mercedes cars still in the pits. 8 cars out on track. And here comes George Russell then, out of the pit lane. Russell now coming around turn 2. And Lance Stroll is trying to improve. He's a couple attempts down on George Russell, though, through the first sector. His home Grand Prix in the Aston Martin. Trying to improve upon Fernando Alonso, who is in front of him in 6th place at this moment in time. Fernando Alonso also on a fast lap as well. Russell and Hamilton just making their way around 6 and 7. They're going to be the final guys to set fast laps here in Canada. And actually, Hamilton is behind Russell once again. So Hamilton is going to be able to strike if George Russell remains on provisional pole once everybody else has come around. Lance Stroll now coming down the back straight. Think that is Max Verstappen in front of him. And Lance Stroll does just edges Fernando Alonso up into P6. Fernando Alonso is on a fast lap as well, though. Daniel Ricciardo also looking to try and edge his teammate. Getting himself down towards that final chicane. 13 and 14. Very well done from Daniel Ricciardo. Gets very close to the wall of champions, but not quite into it. And across the line goes 4th fastest. There's Daniel Ricciardo onto the 2nd row of the grid as it stands. Here comes Fernando Alonso then. And across the line comes the Spaniard and goes 5th fastest. Will slot just behind Daniel Ricciardo as it stands. Although Max Verstappen has just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector. He's actually 500ths down, though, on George Russell's time through the middle sector. This is going to be incredibly close and down to the final sector for Max Verstappen. Yuki Tsunoda's on a personal best, though. Goes across the line. Only 8th fastest from Yuki Tsunoda, so Ricciardo does have the upper hand. Max Verstappen, though, has been on pole position here so many times before and doesn't. Oh, he matches it. Gets the exact same time as George Russell, but George Russell obviously set it first. George Russell not improving through the middle sector and doesn't look like he's going to improve on his lap time. Maybe does, though. Nope. Goes a little bit slower. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton not improving at all through the first 2 sectors. Will not improve on his lap time and will stay 7th fastest. George Russell, take a bow. George Russell obviously made a little mistake here last year in Canada, didn't he? He hit the wall, took himself out of the Grand Prix. But a pole position for George Russell here in Canada. Max Verstappen matches George Russell's time. I told you it was going to be close. And down to that final sector, literally down to the 1,000th of a second. They could not be separated. Max Verstappen will start on 2nd place here tomorrow. Lando Norris will start on the 2nd row in 3rd place. Oscar Piastri 4th. Got Daniel Ricciardo starts in 5th place tomorrow. That is a very, very good qualifying session from Daniel Ricciardo in the RB, it has to be said. And a really nice helmet from Daniel Ricciardo, which we haven't mentioned. We've got Fernando Alonso in 6th place. A good, solid starting position from Fernando Alonso, considering where Aston Martin have been so far this season. Hamilton will start in 7th place. Yuki Tsunoda in 8th. Then Lance Stroll and Alex Albon will start inside the points tomorrow in 9th and 10th place. The 2 Ferraris will start on the 6th row of the grid. We've got Charles Leclerc starting in 11th, Carlos Sainz in 12th, Sargent will start in 13th, Magnussen 14th, Gasly in 15th. Those 5 dropped out in Q2. And then the 5 drivers that dropped out in Q1, Sergio Perez will start 16th place tomorrow. Bottas and Ocon will start on the penultimate row of the grid in 17th and 18th, with Hülkenberg and Joe at the back of the pack. Wow, what a qualifying session from Mercedes. What a qualifying session from George Russell. Was not expecting George Russell to be the pole sitter here today. I said, might be Norris, it might be Verstappen, it might even be Leclerc. Leclerc absolutely blown out of the water. Norris very, very close indeed. 200ths of a second off. He'll start in 3rd place. Verstappen matches George Russell's time, but George Russell set it first. He set the standard in the Mercedes, and a 1 minute 12-second lap time will get him pole position. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like on here if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. On our way to 85,000, then 90,000 subscribers. We are live again tomorrow for the Canadian Grand Prix, so make sure you put that in your calendars as well. We'll be back once again, and George Russell does the T-pose on top of his Mercedes to celebrate his pole position, and a stunning, stunning Saturday drive from George Russell. They called him Mr. Saturday before. He's proven it again. He is Mr. Saturday once again in Formula One, and starts from pole position. As I said, though, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you tomorrow for the Canadian Grand Prix. Russell, Verstappen, Norris. The battle of that trio for pole position was already very, very close. The battle between that trio for the win tomorrow is going to be absolutely sublime. So make sure you're here.